People often ask me, who qualifies to apply for asylum when they're in the country? What are the rules? What are the bases that are needed in order to qualify for asylum? There are only 4 or 5 categories of people who actually qualify for asylum. The main overwhelming point on this is that they must have a credible fear. If they are returned to their country, they would be persecuted and they would suffer harm. And the way to show that is usually that while they were there in the past, they did actually suffer. They were either physically beaten, there was violence against them, or they were detained, or there were threats of those things. As far as the categories, the most common one, of course, is if it's based on ethnic origin or it's based on religious background. So there are some religions that are persecuted in some countries, and again, on the ethnic thing, there are some minorities that are persecuted in their countries. There is also the political opinion. That's also a very common one for people who have a position, a political opinion that is contrary to the prevailing government's opinion at the time. And of course, if they belong to a particular social group. And that usually means being maybe a member of the LGBTQ category in those countries, where in many countries they are persecuted, that they are not allowed to live their life because of their lifestyle, of their sexual lifestyle. If you believe that you have a credible fear of being persecuted if you get returned to your country based on those grounds, you would qualify for asylum. And as far as the process by which to do it, if you have come to the United States with a visa, you would then apply to a USCIS office, which would schedule an interview. And if you pass the interview, then you are given the relief of asylum with a permanent residence. And if you don't pass the interview, then you are referred to the court, and then there's a trial. The same thing happens if you come from the southern border. You are then put immediately in removal proceedings. What means is that you are put in the immigration court, and you have to demonstrate your right to obtain asylum relief in the court. When that happens, generally there's a master hearing that is scheduled. It's the first hearing where you appear and you get a date for your individual hearing. An individual hearing is the actual trial that takes place where you try to convince the government, you try to convince the court with the government sitting right there within the court that you have a well-founded fear of being persecuted if you are sent back to your country. You have to demonstrate that, and the way to demonstrate it is by filing the evidence. So we will file a brief with the evidence with the court approximately a month prior to your individual hearing date, and then we will appear, and through your testimony as well as the testimony of witnesses and sometimes of experts, we will try to demonstrate that you have a legitimate claim for asylum relief in the country. Sometimes, instead of asylum, you will be granted what's called a withholding of removal or a protection of CAT, Convention Against Torture. Without getting too technical, those are also reliefs that allow you to stay in the country as a result of your fear of persecution where you were born or where you used to live prior to that. We currently have over 5,000 cases in immigration court, so we have a lot of experience dealing with this topic, with asylum cases. I personally handle over 100 individual hearings in immigration courts every year. That means that I probably have more experience than anyone else as far as representing you in the asylum court hearings, and hopefully that would mean that it'll be easier for me to use the evidence that you have given me and the facts that you have given me in order to try to demonstrate your legal right to reside here, your legal right to get asylum, which leads to your legal right to get permanent residence, a green card, and eventually citizenship.